PhD as discussed by Sir. So without further ado, I'll present my screen and I'll straight away jump into my topic. Please let me know if my screen is visible once I share it. Uh, yes, is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, it is getting visible. Okay.
Okay. So I'll be starting with constitutionalism and constitutional morality. So what is constitutionalism? Constitutionalism is basically a philosophy. Okay. Philosophy, it is a philosophy which is essential for the democratic setup of every country. It ensures that the freedoms of the individuals that are of primary importance, the freedoms that we get through the constitution are of primary importance. Those freedoms are given primacy, and the state does not encroach upon the liberty of the citizen. That is the basic idea of constitutionalism. Constitutionalism ensures that the government is limited, and it prevents the using of undemocratic powers. It prevents the government from being dictatorial. It prevents the government from being a totalitarian government. That is the basic idea. Now, what is the meaning of constitutionalism in specific? Constitutionalism is a philosophy, as I said, which is evolutionary in nature. Constitutionalism is not static. As the society is changing, constitutionalism is also changing. But there is something which is fixed in constitutionalism, that is the central point of constitutionalism, and that central point is that a limited government. The central point of constitutionalism is a limited government. Constitutionalism recognizes the need of a government, that is true, but at the same time, it also insists upon restraining the government's power. The government should not have n number of powers, unlimited powers the government should not have. And constitutionalism is basically placing some restraints on the government's power. There is no accepted definition of constitutionalism that I can give you. I'm so sorry, but there is no accepted definition of constitutionalism which will exhaustively define the term. But modern constitutionalism requires imposing some limits on the powers of the government and adherence to the rule of law and protection of the fundamental rights. So constitutionalism involves all this. Constitutionalism calls for restriction on the arbitrary power of the state. It means legal limitation on the government. The limitation also on the government has to be legal. The government cannot exercise arbitrary powers, that is true, but we cannot restrict the government illegally, that is also true. The limitation on the government should also be legal. It is, constitutionalism is basically the antithesis of arbitrary rule. It means the limitation of the government by law. We all know the term Magna Carta. Is Magna Carta clear to you? The Magna Carta was the first document which was in the written form, which discussed about the rights and liabilities of a king. Magna Carta was came in 1215. It is as old as it came in 1215, and the first document, that is the Magna Carta, implies constitutionalism. Even the concept of constitutionalism was implied in Magna Carta. It placed a restriction on the powers of King John. King John was the king at that time. In 1215, King John was the king of England, and Magna Carta placed certain restrictions on the power of this King John. Right. Now, that is the meaning of constitutionalism. So what are the ingredients, what are the elements of constitutionalism? The elements of constitutionalism, according to Louis Henkin, are popular sovereignty, supremacy of the constitution and rule of law, political democracy, representative limited government, separation of power, civilian control of the military force, and independent judiciary. We will discuss all these important elements one by one. So what is popular sovereignty? the concept of popular sovereignty is one of the basic ideas. It is one of the underlying ideas in the Indian constitution and the constitution of many other nations world over, like that of the United States and United Kingdom. And it argues that the source of governmental power, that is known as sovereignty, lies with the people, which is known as popular. So people is known as popular, and governmental power is known as sovereignty. So government power rests with the popular, that is the people. This idea is based on the concept of social contract. The social contract is the idea which was basically given by three famous philosophers from England and Switzerland, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Rousseau. We call them Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. So Thomas Hobbes and John Locke were from England, and Rousseau was from Switzerland. These three philosophical thinkers gave us the concept of social contract, and the popular sovereignty concept is coming from the very idea of social contract. Now, what is social contract? According to Thomas Hobbes, human life is a state of nature. What is state of nature? Thomas Hobbes wrote the famous book, The Leviathan, in 1651. I don't know how many of you have heard the name of the book, The Leviathan. In that book, he compared the government, he compared the king with a huge sea monster, right? And that sea monster had many powers. So this Thomas Hobbes wrote the book, The Leviathan, in 1651 during the English Civil War. Civil War was going on during that time in England, and in that book he laid down the first basis of popular sovereignty. For the very first time, he discussed what was popular sovereignty. According to his theory, human beings were selfish, and if human beings were left alone in what he called a state of nature, if human beings were left alone in the state of nature, then human life would be nasty, human life would be brutish, and human life would be short, because humans will kill each other and they'll all die. Therefore, as a solution, he suggested that to survive, people must give over their rights to a ruler who provides them with protection. We will all give our rights to a ruler. That ruler will protect us. But in Hobbes' opinion, an absolute monarchy provided the best form of security. Hobbes advocated for monarchy. I know it is subject to a lot of criticism because monarchy, absolute monarchy, is not desirable. Democracy is desirable. But keeping in mind, it was written in 1651, as old as 1651, and at that time, such a concept was one of a kind. We must give him that credit. Now, what was the opinion of John Locke? John Locke gave the social contract limiting rulers' powers. He basically gave us the concept of social contract. John Locke wrote 2 treatises on government. That is the name of his book. 2 treatises on government was written in 1689. It was written in response to another paper, which was written by Robert Filmer, and that paper was termed Patriarcha. So Robert Filmer wrote a paper named Patriarcha, in which he argued that kings have a divine right to rule. Divine right means a right which is given by God to the kings. But Locke argued that the power of a king or the government doesn't come from the God, but it comes from the people. We, the people of India, as Sir has read out the preamble, it starts with we, the people of India. We, the people of India, have given the government or the king the right to govern us. It has not come from the God. So people make a social contract with their government, and they give away some of their rights to the government, and in exchange, the government protects the people. That is the concept of social contract, right? If you have any question, please feel free to switch on your mic and ask, because I am not able to see the chat box. Acha. The next element of The next element of constitutionalism is the supremacy of the constitution and rule of law. The Indian constitution was made the supreme law of the land by the founding fathers of the constitution, we all know. The founding fathers of our constitution, that is the Constituent Assembly, specifically Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, they made the constitution the supreme law of the land. The concept of a king can do no wrong, there is a concept called king can do no wrong in Latin. So this does not apply to Indian democracy. If we treat our government as the king, even the king can do wrong and it can be made accountable to its people. All state functions will be governed by the constitution and are subject to the constitutional provisions only. This supremacy is granted by whom? This supremacy is granted by the will of the people. Again, we, the people of India, we are granting the supremacy to the constitution, that the government of the day will be guided by the constitution only. Now, what is supremacy of the constitution? The constitution is the highest law of the land, that is supremacy, and all the laws that will be passed by the central government or the state government must be consistent with the constitutional provisions. If the laws passed by the central government or the state government are not in consistency with the constitutional provisions, then what will happen? The courts, basically the Supreme Court and the lower courts, will strike them down. Those laws will be declared unconstitutional through a process called judicial review. By whom? By the Supreme Court and the lower courts. And as a result, the organs of the government has three organs: the legislative, the executive, and judiciary. At both the central level and the state level, these organs must operate within the boundaries established by the constitution only, and they cannot go beyond the boundaries of the constitution. Now, what will happen if the supremacy of the constitution is compared to the supremacy of the parliament? Who is superior, the constitution or the parliament? If this debate happens, then the supremacy of the constitution will always have an upper hand. A question may come up that whether the parliament is the law-making body of India, whether the parliament can change the constitution or not. যদি কনস্টিটিউশনটাই চেঞ্জ করে দেওয়া যায় তাহলে তো সব শেষ, তাহলে তো সব যেরকম লেজিসলেচার চাইবে সেরকমই হবে। সেটা কি হতে পারে? Supreme Court has said that the constitution can be amended by the legislature, but there has to be certain limitation. The constitution cannot be amended completely. The basic structure of the constitution has to be maintained by the legislature. This places a feature of accountability in the law-making power of the legislature. Clear? Now, how is supremacy of the Constitution of India is practiced in India? India has a written constitution and it is a democratic country, we all know. The rule of law is the foundation of the country's governance. That means no person, no body will be superior. Only the rule of law should be the law should be the superior entity in a country. That is followed in India. And all the administrative structures in the country are expected to follow the rule of law. Now, this constitutionalism is expected to be a natural corollary to the government of India. That is not something which we have to develop. That is naturally imbibed in the Constitution of India and in the governance of India. However, many a times we have seen that India's experience with the governance process has been very mixed. Sometimes the values of constitutionalism have been done away with. The courts and the legislatures have many a times not followed the guiding principles of constitutionalism. On one hand, we have an excellent administrative structure in place to oversee even the most minute detail related to the welfare maximization. But on the other hand, excessive bureaucracy is there, which has made the rulers separate from the people who are ruled, right? Then the next element is that of political democracy. Now, democracy is defined as a form of government in which the supreme power is vested in the people, and the people exercise them by directly electing representatives in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha and other houses. We elect our representatives directly. This is done through free and fair elections. In essence, democracy is a form of government that is run by the elected representatives of the people. We directly or we indirectly elect representatives to the parliament and they govern us. The next element of constitutionalism is representative limited government. The term limited government refers to any central government in which that government's powers over the people are limited by written or an agreed constitution. That means when the powers of the government are limited and that government is elected through the people, that is a representative limited government. This doctrine of limited government is actually opposite to absolutism. What is opposite to absolutism? Limited government. That means the powers of the government are not absolute, they are limited, right? This absolutism and limited government was also discussed in the English Magna Carta in 1215, and it was the first document to legally give the binding character of a constitution, was for the first time given by the Magna Carta. Right. Now, what is separation of power? The next element is separation of power. This is very important. You will be able to relate to this doctrine of separation of power in the present times. If you follow the news, this concept of separation of power is the basic element, is the rudimentary element of the governance of a democracy. How this principle is speaking about fairness, it is speaking about impartiality, it is speaking about separation of powers in the working of the government. Although it is not followed in a very strict sense, I know it is not followed in a very strict sense in any country, in any nation world over. Most of the democratic countries have adopted a diluted version of the concept of separation of power. Now, what is the concept of separation of power? The concept of separation of power refers to a system of government in which the powers of the government are divided among multiple branches of the government, each branch controlling different functions of the government. There are three bodies in the government: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, and their powers are distinct. Nobody will transgress their powers and interfere in the working of the other bodies' functions. That is basically separation of power. Now, why is separation of power required? Separation of power is required to maintain the concept of check and balance. One body will check the powers of the other body. That is why separation of power is required. Now, who gave us the concept of this separation of power? It was Montesquieu, a French jurist named Montesquieu, gave us the concept of separation of power in 18th century. He used the term trias politica. Trias means three, politica means three political bodies will run the entire country, and nobody will jump into the domain of the other body. Right. So there is an executive. That executive should not exercise the legislative or judicial powers, because this may threaten the freedom and liberty of the individuals. The legislature should never exercise the executive or judicial powers, as this may lead to the arbitrariness and hence it will end liberty. And the judiciary should not exercise the executive or legislative powers, because a judge would then behave like a dictator. So the legislature makes the rules, the executive enforces the rules or the laws, and the judiciary interprets them, whether the laws have been made according to the constitution or not. These are the three functions of the legislative, executive, and the judiciary. Clear? Is there any issue till this slide? I am not getting any response actually. Okay. So
Can we ask something?
yeah, sure, sure.
Ekta ji, since you talked about constitutionalism as contradictory to some sort of absolutism, which is of
Yes.
course possible by in any sort of sovereign,
Yeah.
my concern is, what if this kind of constitutionalism, which is claimed to be the rule of the law, itself becomes some kind of hegemony? I mean, will it not get the chance of being converted to some sort of absolutism?
Yes,
Thank
actually, there are various criticisms to constitutionalism as well, because constitutionalism is basically exercised by judiciary. So it has been sometimes said that judiciary is transgressing its powers and it is becoming an executive body and a legislative body. So there are criticisms to constitutionalism, that is true. But if there is no constitutionalism, if there is no guiding principles of constitutionalism, then the country will, then the government will absolutely become absolutism. There is no doubt in that.
Okay, thank you.
So the next element of constitutionalism is civilian control of the military force. Now, what is civilian control of military force? Civilian control is the fundamental principle of a democratic governance where the elected civilian officials hold ultimate authority over the military. We know that military is very powerful. If we leave the military with unlimited power, with n number of powers, what will happen? We will see military coup, like we have seen in Malaysia, like we have seen in Pakistan, we have seen in Afghanistan. We will see military coup in India also if the Indian military is left with unlimited power. So the civilian control of military power is very necessary. It is crucial for maintaining democratic integrity, for preventing military coups, for ensuring that the armed forces serve the elected government and by extension the people. Right. It fosters a balanced relationship between the military and society, contributing to the national stability and the democratic governance. The last element of constitutionalism is an independent judiciary, which I think, in my opinion, is the most important feature a nation should have in its governance. Under the doctrine of separation of power only it comes, the judiciary is one of the principal organs of the state, along with the executive and the legislature. While the legislature and the executive is concerned with the making of the law and executing them respectively, the judiciary supervises whether the law is properly followed, and also they interpret and applies the law in various legal issues. The separation of power further states that the judiciary should act independently without any outsider's influence. Now, an independent judiciary is extremely important for our democracy to prosper. That is known. Hence, it is expected the judiciary should remain impartial and neutral. However, due to some external factors, we have known, due to some pressures from various influential quarters, the independence of judiciary is often compromised. If we want to discuss on independence of judiciary more, we have to see how the judges are appointed, how the judges are transferred. So there is a collegium system which was replaced by NJAC, something called NJAC, National Judicial Appointment Commission. It was replaced by the collegium system was replaced by NJAC, in which the political bodies had a say. But the Supreme Court again came to the rescue of the independence of judiciary, and it has again enforced the system of collegium system for the appointment and transfer of the judges to the higher judiciary, that is high courts and the Supreme Courts. So the independence of judiciary is ensured through the collegium system. Now, what are the types of constitutionalism that we can discuss? The types of constitutionalism are two. There are two types of constitutionalism: negative constitutionalism and positive constitutionalism. So negative constitutionalism is that which I have discussing this far. I have been discussing this part that the government should do this, the government should not do this. That is negative constitutionalism. The traditional idea of constitutionalism is a negative notion of constitutionalism. In law, a negative understanding of an idea means when it prevents an entity from doing a certain act. If I say the government is not allowed to do this, that means I am talking about negative constitutionalism. So what is positive constitutionalism? Positive constitutionalism is the opposite of negative constitutionalism, in which the government should do something for the welfare of the people. Positive constitutionalism challenges the understanding of seeing constitutionalism in the negative term. The positive aspect of constitutionalism requires the state to be seen in the light of an welfare state. The positive version requires the creation of effective and competent state institutions to ensure the well-being of the citizens. That means in negative constitutionalism, the government should not do certain things, but in positive constitutionalism, the government should do certain things like bringing some good policies for the people. Like if the government is bringing in the concept of subsidy again on certain articles, then it is doing something for the benefit of the people, for the welfare of the people, then that will be seen as a positive constitutionalism. Now, why do we need constitutionalism? What is the need of constitutionalism? Constitutionalism is needed because the greatest danger to constitutional government is emergent state arising from human factors in politics. Humans have human factor. Every human is different from the other human being, right? So the human factor in politics, especially from the capacity of politicians to distort and vitiate whatever governmental forms may be devised, this is harmful. So a lot depends upon the actual behavior of these individuals and upon their willingness to observe these rules. The successful working of a constitution depends on the democratic spirit, and this spirit, the spirit of fair play, self-restraint, and mutual accommodation of different interests and opinions. There can be no constitutional government unless the wielders of powers are prepared to observe the limits upon the governmental powers. So these people tend to misuse the powers that are given to them, and to stop them from misusing, we need constitutionalism. That is the need for constitutionalism. What guarantees us the constitutionalism? Is a written constitution a guarantee of constitutionalism? No. A written government is not a guarantee to constitutionalism. Even Nazi Germany had a written constitution, but that does not mean that Nazi Germany adhered to the philosophy of constitutionalism. We know that Nazi Germany did not adhere to the principle of constitutionalism, right? So a written constitution is no way a guarantee that constitutionalism will be followed in that state. If that state is following constitutionalism, that is a separate thing. If that state means nation, that nation is having a written constitution, that is a separate thing. Now, how constitutionalism is practiced in India? India is a state by the constitution. The Indian state is a result of the Constitution of India. The Indian Constitution not just provides the rights and immunities to the citizens, but it also delineates the character and structure of the Indian state. So basically, constitutionalism is following from the Constitution of India, and even if India had no written constitution, I'm sure constitutionalism would have followed. Right. Constitutionalism is also following from the concept of Article 21, that is due process of law. Article 21 of the Indian Constitution provides that life and liberty cannot be deprived except by a procedure which is established by law. If I need to curtail the life and liberty of an individual, that procedure has to be properly established by a law. This means that there has to be some legal justification for the deprivation of life and liberty of a person. The requirement of law for deprivation acts as a limitation on the arbitrary exercise of the powers of the legislatures as well as the executive. Such a law should not be just a mere prescription. It must conform to the due process, which involves the law to have the element of fundamental fairness. That means there should be a law to deprive someone from its life and liberty, but that law should also be fair and just. Now, what are the differences between constitution and constitutionalism? Constitution is a written document, but this constitutionalism is written nowhere. Nowhere in the Indian Constitution we will find the word constitutionalism. It is the philosophy, it is the idea of the Constitution, and it is unwritten. Constitution is a document which places limit on the powers of the state, but constitutionalism is an ideology, is a philosophy behind limiting the powers of the state. Constitution deals with the structure of the government, the political process, and the rights of the citizens. But constitutionalism deals with limiting the powers of the state and protecting the individuals of their rights. So here are some of the differences between constitutionalism and constitution. If I share the slides, the PPT, you will be able to read from here. I'll straight away jump to constitutional morality. What is constitutional morality? Constitutional morality has no definition as well. One of the earliest definition of constitutional morality was given by Grote, but that too is not exhaustive. We cannot define constitutional morality as we cannot define constitutionalism. This Mr. Grote defined constitutional morality as a form of supreme obedience to the various aspects of the constitution of the land. According to him, constitutional morality implied certain obligations for both the citizens as well as the authority which have been enlisted as respecting the constitution and all forms of authorities deriving their command from it. Availability of right to free speech for these citizens to criticize and hold accountable all those officials acting in pursuance of that constitutional duties. The obligation of the mandated authority and public officials to act within the sanction charge given to the constitution, and the people contesting for political power and their opposition should have reverence to the constitution. So these are the meanings of constitutional morality. In the context of present era, constitutional morality can be primarily defined to be constituted of two sub-classifications: constitutional morality as a spirit or force of the constitution, and as an antonym of popular morality. So there is a difference between popular morality and constitutional morality. We need to know the difference between the constitutional morality and popular morality. So what is the difference between constitutional morality and popular morality? Constitutional morality is derived from the constitution and legal principles, but social morality is rooted in the cultures, in the religious and the traditional beliefs which are prevalent in the society. Constitutional morality is universal and consistent across all the nations. That means if constitutional morality in India is something, that will also be the constitutional morality of any other nation. It is not very different in the nations world over. But social morality changes with nation, it changes with religion, it changes with different cultures. What is the function of constitutional morality? Constitutional morality guides the judiciary and the legislature in interpreting and applying laws. But the function of social morality is it influences the everyday social practices and the everyday behaviors of the people. One famous example of constitutional morality which was recognized by the courts of law is the case of Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India. In this case, what happened, the constitutional morality to decriminalize consensual homosexual acts was prioritized. This legalizing of homosexual act is something which can be immoral, socially immoral to some people, but the courts of India recognized this constitutional morality, that homosexual people are also having some rights, and those rights have to be recognized by the legislature, was recognized by the court, and the court in Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India decriminalized consensual homosexual acts. This may be immoral to some people, but that was moral legally. So that is the difference between constitutional morality and social morality. Now, there are some criticisms also of constitutional morality, and those criticisms are, if you go through the criticisms, you will find these criticisms to be very valid. There is no explicit mention of the term constitutional morality in the Constitution of India. You will not find the word constitutionalism and constitutional morality in the Constitution of India. No. Despite the presence of several precedents or judgments based on the principle of constitutional morality, there is no fixed definition that has been attributed to the constitutional morality. Thus, it has an open-ended meaning. You can judge it as you wish. It has an open-ended meaning and is privy to subjective interpretation by different perception holders. It has often been left to the discretion of the individual judges to interpret its essence and apply in requisite situations. So judges were left to their discretion, that you can adjudge constitutional morality as per you have the notion in your mind, and you can apply those things in the legal decisions. Another viewpoint presented by those in opposition of constitutional morality says that it hinders the organic and natural development of liberalism or reflection of the wrong or ethical ills of the society, as it vests power in the hands of the courts. The courts have got very wide powers to strike down any act as immoral or unconstitutional, but this has given the courts too wide powers that they can misuse. This is another criticism against constitutional morality and constitutionalism. The Attorney General of India, that is Mr. K.K. Venugopal, has described constitutional morality as a dangerous act to the country. He expressed that the Supreme Court is slowly transforming into a third parliament chamber. We have discussed the concept of separation of power, that the judiciary should not exercise the powers of the legislature. But according to Mr. K.K. Venugopal, the Attorney General of India, the Supreme Court is transforming into the third parliament chamber, which is dangerous for country having the concept of separation of power. So that is it from my side. I welcome questions. I don't know how much I have made you understand this concept.
Thank you, Ekta.
Thank you, sir.
Is any unclarity left? We have some questions from our students,
right,
and this will be these are from our question papers.
Okay.
Deep Kumar, what is your question, Deep Kumar?
Constitutionalism is not committed to a common institution life, any particular tradition, a plural way of life, a cosmopolitan law. Is not committed to, I think, any particular tradition. Here, I think all the options are can be justified. All the options can be justified in some way or the other.
Any particular tradition? This would be the answer here.
Yes. Constitutionalism. resolves conflict in a plural society through formal constitutional process, substantive principles constitutional, substantive principles conventional, substantive individual principles. Formal constitutional process, I think, will be the answer, according to me. When constitutions promote, they facilitate private investment.
Please explain this question.
Hello. Deep Kumar Mondol, you want to say something? হ্যাঁ বলো।
একটু এক্সপ্লেইন করতে।
ওটা একটু এক্সপ্লেইন করে দিলে ভালো হতো।
আচ্ছা, constitutionalism resolves conflicts in a plural society through formal constitutional process. Any conflict in a plural society has to be resolved through formal constitutional process only. মানে যদি কোনো কনফ্লিক্ট আসে সেটাকে যদি রিজলভ করতে হয় সেটা ফর্মাল কনস্টিটিউশনাল প্রসেস দিয়েই করতে হবে। সেটা সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ প্রিন্সিপালস অফ মানে এটা কি ঠিক লিখেছো? সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ প্রিন্সিপালস কনস্টিটিউশনাল এরকমই ছিল না? সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ কনস্টিটিউশনাল প্রিন্সিপালস, সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ কনভেনশনাল প্রিন্সিপাল, সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল প্রিন্সিপাল, এটা ঠিক আছে। কিন্তু যে কোনো কনফ্লিক্ট যদি আসে সেটাকে ফর্মাল কনস্টিটিউশনাল প্রসেস দিয়েই করতে হবে থ্রু দি কোর্টস অফ ল।
কনভেনশনাল তো হবে না, এই তার মানে ফর্মাল অথবা সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ প্রিন্সিপাল,
formal constitutional process or substantive constitutional principles, both will hold good.
Okay,
you have to আচ্ছা এটার জন্য যদি জিজ্ঞেস করো I will give you one suggestion যে কোনটা ঠিক আনসার সেটা খোঁজার থেকে কোনগুলো ভুল আনসার সেগুলো যদি খোঁজো তাহলে বেশি ইজি হবে। তাহলে এখানে যদি এখানে যদি আমি খুঁজি যে কোনটা ভুল, সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল প্রিন্সিপালস হবেই না, সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ কনভেনশনাল প্রিন্সিপালস হবেই না। বাকি দুটো থাকলো হচ্ছে সাবস্ট্যান্টিভ কনস্টিটিউশনাল প্রিন্সিপালস আর ফর্মাল কনস্টিটিউশনাল প্রসেস। এই দুটোর মধ্যে যে কোনো একটা হবে। যদি থাকে এ এন্ড বি, অপশনে যদি থাকে এ এন্ড বি তাহলে অপশন এ এন্ড বি হবে, বোথ এ এন্ড বি। কিন্তু যদি বলো একটা তাহলে আমি বলবো ফর্মাল কনস্টিটিউশনাল প্রসেস।
ঠিক। আচ্ছা, আরেকটা প্রশ্ন মনে হয় রয়েছে।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, when constitution promote dash they facilitate private investment, the management of public debt, the management of public
debt and the reassurance of vulnerable
constituencies. When constitutional promotes dash they facilitate private investment, the management of public debt, the reassurance of vulnerable constituencies. Promote national aspirations. When constitutions promote national aspirations, they facilitate private investment, the management of public debt, and the reassurance of vulnerable constituencies. Compromise. When compromise hobe na, eliminate kori. When constitution promote compromise hobe na. When constitution promotes the empowerment of public officials, empowerment of public officials mane ki? What is empowerment of public officials? If the public officials are empowered, what will happen?
The constitutional structure to thakbe na tahole.
The constitutional structure will not be followed. So if constitution promotes national aspirations, the aspirations of the nation that is reflected through the preamble, if the constitution promotes that will be more beneficial.
কিন্তু কাছাকাছি একটা ক্রেডিবল কমিটমেন্ট যদি হয় তাহলে কি রকম হবে?
ক্রেডিবল কমিটমেন্টস স্যার, কমিটমেন্টস মানে কমিটমেন্টস কি লিগালি এনফোর্সেবল সেটাও একটা দেখার বিষয়। মানে কমিটমেন্টস আর মেড, বাট আর দোজ কমিটমেন্টস লিগালি এনফোর্সেবল? সেগুলো যদি গভর্নমেন্ট সেগুলো যদি ফুলফিল না করে, গভর্নমেন্ট অনেক কিছুই কমিট করে বাট সেগুলো যদি ফুলফিল না করে সেগুলো কি কনস্টিটিউশনালি পানিশেবল? দ্যাট ইজ দ্য থিং।
তাহলে এখানে বিটাই দিতে হবে, ন্যাশনাল অ্যাসপিরেশনস।
হ্যাঁ, আই থিংক বিট।
আচ্ছা, এটা বুঝতে পেরেছো তোমরা? হ্যাঁ, এই উত্তরটা বুঝতে পারলে? তাহলে পরেরটা আরেকটা প্রশ্ন রয়েছে মনে হচ্ছে, রিজলভিং কনস্টিটিউশনাল ডিসপিউট।
is more complicated process than submitting questions to judges, because judges do not always know the correct answers. Elected representatives and other actors have historically played a central role in setting major constitutional controversies. The Constitution does not give judges the power to decide constitutional cases. Initiating lawsuits is a time consuming. দেখো DC এই দুটো প্রথমেই বাদ, ঠিক আছে? Elected representatives and other actors have historically played a central role in setting major constitutional controversies. Acha, here the correct answer is B, because judges do not always know the correct answers. Eta answer C ta agei bad. The Constitution does not give judges the power to decide constitutional cases. Actually, Constitution gives the power judges to decide constitutional cases. Constitution bolai ache the Supreme Court will decide constitutional cases, right? Are initiating lawsuits is a time consuming and cumbersome activity. This is also not holding good, because it is a time consuming and cumbersome activity, that is true, but legal cases যদি লিগাল রাইট ভায়োলেট হয়, যদি কনস্টিটিউশনাল রাইট ভায়োলেট হয়, তখন তো ফাইল করতেই হয়। So the elected representatives and other actors have historically played a central role in settling major constitutional controversies. The elected representatives মানে politicians, they have made constitutional controversies. তারা যে constitutional controversies তৈরি করেছে সেটা রিজলভ করা একটু কমপ্লিকেটেড, তাই জন্য constitutional disputes more complicated.
আচ্ছা, আর তো কোনো প্রশ্ন নেই। এবারে তোমাদের যদি কিছু জিজ্ঞাসা থাকে সরাসরি জিজ্ঞাসা করতে পারো। হ্যাঁ, শুক্লা তুমি কিছু জিজ্ঞেস করবে? শুক্লা মুন্ডর। আচ্ছা, আমি
জিজ্ঞাসা করতাম, কিন্তু কতটা মানে অ্যাকসেপ্টেবল এখানে আমি বুঝতে পারছি না। মানে আমার মন চাইছে, কিন্তু বেশিরভাগই অ্যাকসেপ্টেবল হয় না। জিজ্ঞেস করব ম্যাম, এই কনস্টিটিউশনালিজমের এইমসটা কি, উদ্দেশ্যটা কি?
To have a welfare state, to have a free state. আমরা যারা ইন্ডিয়াতে আছি, শুধু ইন্ডিয়া নয়, যে কোনো নেশনে যারাই আছে তারা যেন ভালো করে বাঁচতে পারে, মাথা উঁচু করে বাঁচতে পারে। যে রাইটস গুলো দেওয়া আছে, যে ফান্ডামেন্টাল রাইটস গুলো দেওয়া আছে কনস্টিটিউশনে, সেগুলো যদি একটার পর একটা পড়ো তাহলে বুঝবে যে সেগুলো ভালোভাবে বাঁচার জন্য দেওয়া আছে। সেই রাইটস গুলো যেন আমরা পাই, কারণ অনেক সময় দেখা গেছে যে যারা পাওয়ারে এসছে তারা সেই রাইটস গুলো দেয়নি। যেমন রিজার্ভেশনের রাইট দেওয়া আছে কনস্টিটিউশনে, সেই রাইটটা যদি কোনো পলিটিক্যাল পার্টি আমাদের না দেয়, যারা রিজার্ভেশন ডিজার্ভ করে তাদেরকে যদি না দেয়, তাহলে সেটা একটা ইস্যু। এই জিনিসগুলো যাতে না হয় তার জন্য কনস্টিটিউশনালিজমের কনসেপ্টটা আছে। যদি আমাদের কনস্টিটিউশনও না থাকতো তাও কনস্টিটিউশনালিজম থাকতো, কারণ এটা কোনো রিটেন কোনো জায়গায় লেখা নেই যে এটা কনস্টিটিউশনালিজম। আমাদের রাইট টু ইকুয়ালিটি আছে, রাইট টু ফ্রি স্পিচ আছে, রাইট টু লিভ উইথ হিউম্যান ডিগনিটি আছে, এগুলো আছে। যদি কনস্টিটিউশন না থাকতো তাহলে কি তোমাকে কেউ এসে মেরে দিতে পারতো? সেটা হতে পারতো না। আমাদের হিউম্যান রাইটস আসে, তো বেসিক হিউম্যান রাইটস যাতে প্রোটেক্ট করা হয় তার জন্য কনস্টিটিউশনালিজমের কনসেপ্টটা আছে। আমাদের সবার হিউম্যান রাইটস আছে। অ্যাজ উই আর অল আর হিউম্যান বিংস, উই হ্যাভ হিউম্যান রাইটস। আমাদের যদি কেউ রাইটস নাও দেয় আলাদা করে, তাও আমাদের হিউম্যান রাইটস আছে। সেগুলো যাতে প্রোটেক্ট করা যায় ভালোভাবে, সেই জন্য কনস্টিটিউশনালিজম, কনস্টিটিউশনাল মরালিটির মতন কনসেপ্ট ইভলভ করেছে।
হ্যাঁ, সতনাম রুইদাস। হ্যাঁ, সতনাম রুইদাস, বলো কি বলছো?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, আমার একটা কোশ্চেন আছে যে কেন ডক্টর বি আর আম্বেদকর জি 32 নম্বর যে আর্টিকেল, সেই আর্টিকেলকে কেন হার্ট এন্ড দ্য সোল অফ আওয়ার কনস্টিটিউশন বলা হচ্ছে, সেটা যদি একটু বলেন।
আর্টিকেল 32, হ্যাঁ স্যার, আর্টিকেল 32 কি বলছে সেটা কি তুমি মানে পড়েছো না? আমি মানে সেটা বলবো। আর্টিকেল 32 বলছে যে আমাদের সবার যে রাইট গুলো আছে সেগুলো যদি কেউ কেড়ে নেয় তাহলে যাতে আমরা কোর্টে যেতে পারি। মানে আমাদের রাইট যদি কেউ কেড়ে নেয় তাহলে আমরা কোর্টে যেতে পারবো, সেটাই আর্টিকেল 32 তে বলা আছে। এবার যদি আর্টিকেল 32 না থাকতো, আমরা যদি কোর্টে যেতে না পারতাম আমাদের রাইটস গুলো প্রোটেক্ট করার জন্য, তাহলে রাইটস গুলো দেওয়ারই কোনো মানে ছিল না। রাইটস ভায়োলেট হলে যদি তার কোনো রেমিডি না থাকে তাহলে রাইটসেরই কোনো মানে নেই, তাই না? এবার আমাদের আর্টিকেল 32 সেই রাইটটাই দিচ্ছে যাতে আমরা কোর্টে যেতে পারি, আমাদের আগেনস্টে কোনো রাইট, আমাদের কোনো রাইট যদি ভায়োলেট হয়, কোনো ফান্ডামেন্টাল রাইট যদি ভায়োলেট হয়, তাহলে আমরা যাতে কোর্টে যেতে পারি সেই রাইটটা আমাদের দিচ্ছে আর্টিকেল 32। সেই জন্য আর্টিকেল 32-কে ডক্টর বি.আর. আম্বেদকর এক্সপ্লেন করেছেন অ্যাজ হার্ট অ্যান্ড সোল অফ দি কনস্টিটিউশন, বিকজ ওই রাইটটা ছাড়া বাকি রাইটগুলোই মিনিংলেস হয়ে যাবে। আমাদের অন্য রাইট যদি ভায়োলেট হয়, আমরা যদি কোর্টে যেতে না পারি, তাহলে রাইট দেয়ারই কোনো মানে থাকে না, তাই না?
আসলে তিনি বলতে চাইছেন যে আমরা কোন রকম বঞ্চনার যদি শিকার হই, তাহলে আমরা সুপ্রিম কোর্টে যেতে পারি, সেজন্য হয়তো বলছেন।
হ্যাঁ, আমরা সুপ্রিম কোর্টে যেতে পারবো হেল্প চাইতে, সেটাই আর্টিকেল 32-তে বলা আছে, আর সেই জন্যই আর্টিকেল 32 এত দরকার। এবার আর্টিকেল 32 সুপ্রিম কোর্টের কথা বলছে, সেম একটা আর্টিকেল বলছে হাই কোর্টের ক্ষেত্রে, সেটা কিন্তু আর্টিকেল 226। সো আর্টিকেল 32 যখন পড়ছো, তখন আর্টিকেল 226ও পড়তে হবে। আমাদের যদি কোনো কনস্টিটিউশনাল রাইট ভায়োলেট হয়, তাহলে আমরা যাব আন্ডার আর্টিকেল 32, কোথায়? সুপ্রিম কোর্টে। কিন্তু এই কনস্টিটিউশনাল রাইট ছাড়াও আমাদের আরো অন্যান্য রাইট আছে, সেগুলো যদি ভায়োলেট হয়, তাহলে আমরা কোথায় যাব? আমরা যাব আন্ডার আর্টিকেল 226 টু এনি হাই কোর্ট।
আচ্ছা ম্যাডাম, বলছি আরেকটা আমার কোশ্চেন ছিল, এটা যদিও মানে একটু আলাদা দিক থেকে, সেটা কি করা যাবে? আচ্ছা, বলছি ম্যাম, আমাদের যে সরকারি স্কুল যেগুলো রয়েছে, সেগুলোতে যে বিভিন্ন রকমের ধর্মীয় বিভিন্ন রকমের ক্রিয়াকলাপ হয়ে থাকে, এটা কি সাংবিধানিক দিক থেকে বলা হয়েছে?
একটা উদাহরণ দিলে, একটা মানে এখন হয়েছে এরকম উদাহরণ দিলে আমি ভালো বুঝতে পারবো কি রকম ধর্ণা বলছো। মানে
ধর্ম বলতে দেখুন, অনেক রকম ক্রিয়াকলাপ তো হয় আমাদের স্কুলে, যেমন সরস্বতী পুজো হয়ে থাকে। আমি কোনো কাউকে আঘাত করার কথা বলছি না, ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে যে হয়ে থাকে। তো
এটা কি
সেকুলার পলিসিগুলো ঠিকভাবে স্ট্রিক্টলি মেইনটেইন হচ্ছে না, এটাই ওর বক্তব্য।
সেকুলারিজমের কথা যদি বলো, তাহলে আমাদের ইন্ডিয়াতে সেকুলারিজমের একটা অন্য ধরন ফলো হয়। ইন্ডিয়াতে বলা হচ্ছে যে গভর্নমেন্ট কোনো একটা এক ধরনের রিলিজিয়নের হয়ে কথা বলবে না, এটা এক ধরনের সেকুলারিজম। আরেকটা সেকুলারিজম কি হতে পারে? গভর্নমেন্ট কোনো রিলিজিয়ন ফলো হতে দেবে না, কিন্তু ইন্ডিয়ান গভর্নমেন্ট সেটা করে না। ইন্ডিয়ান কনস্টিটিউশন বলছে যে সবাই নিজের ধর্ম ফলো করতে পারে, কিন্তু গভর্নমেন্ট কোনো নিজের রিলিজিয়ন ডিক্লেয়ার করবে না। অন্যদিকে আমরা যদি ফ্রান্সে দেখি, সেখানে যেমন খ্রিস্টান স্টেট আছে, যেরকম পাকিস্তান একটা ইসলামিক স্টেট, ওখানে ডিক্লেয়ারই করে দিয়েছে যে আমরা ইসলামিক স্টেট, কিন্তু তার মানে তো এটা নয় যে অন্য ধর্মের লোক সেখানে থাকতে পারবে না, সেটাও এক ধরনের একসাথে থাকা। কিন্তু ইন্ডিয়াতে সেকুলারিজম মানে গভর্নমেন্ট কোনো পার্টিকুলার রিলিজিয়নকে অ্যাজ স্টেট রিলিজিয়ন রেকগনাইজ করবে না। যখনই রেকগনাইজ করছে না, তখন কি হচ্ছে, সব স্কুলে বা কলেজে বা ইউনিভার্সিটিতে সরস্বতী পুজো পালন হচ্ছে। এবার সরস্বতী পুজো যেরকম পালন হচ্ছে, সেরকম তো অন্যান্য ছুটিও দেওয়া হয়, যেমন ঈদে ছুটি দেওয়া হয়, যেরকম ক্রিসমাসে ছুটি দেওয়া হয়। কেউ যদি চায় আমি কলেজে গিয়ে ক্রিসমাস পালন করব, সেটা কি কলেজে ঢুকতে দেবে না? তোমার কি মনে হয়?
আমার এই সম্পর্কে ম্যাম আইডিয়া অতটা নেই।
আচ্ছা,
ঠিক আছে, আমরা এবার একটু ঘুরিয়ে নিয়ে আসি। আমাদের আলোচনা খুবই ফলপ্রসূ হয়েছে। আমার মনে হয় আর কারোর সেরকম জিজ্ঞাসা কিছু নেই নির্দিষ্ট এই বিষয়ে। শুধু একটি কথা বলে আমরা শেষ করবো, যে এখন যে যারা বড় বড় মানে জুডিশিয়ারিতে কাজ করছেন, তারা জুডিশিয়ারি থেকে বেরিয়ে গিয়ে পলিটিক্সে যাচ্ছেন এবং বিভিন্ন ধরনের পাথস নিচ্ছেন গভর্নমেন্টের কাছ থেকে। এটা তো সরাসরি আমাদের যে কনস্টিটিউশনাল মরালিটি তার বিপক্ষে যায়, তাই না? এবং এই ঘটনা রিসেন্ট খুব বেশি ঘটছে, অন্তত আমরা কয়েক বছর দেখছি, খুব বেশি ঘটছে। সেটা কিন্তু আমাদের কনস্টিটিউশনাল ভ্যালুজ বা কনস্টিটিউশনাল মরালিটির ক্ষেত্রে একটা নেগেটিভ দিকে আমরা যাচ্ছি অবশ্যই। ঠিক আছে, আর কেউ কিছু জিজ্ঞাসা করতে? দয়া তোমার কিছু বক্তব্য আছে? দয়া চ্যাটার্জি। হ্যাঁ, বিকাশ কিছু বলবে? আতিকুর রহমান বলো। আতিকুর বলো।
বলছি ম্যাম, আপনি বললেন যে উইদাউট কনস্টিটিউশন বাট কনস্টিটিউশন থেকে যাবে, তো সেখানে মানে কনস্টিটিউশন ছাড়া কনস্টিটিউশনকে কি মানে ভোগ করা যাবে, সেখানে কি ফ্রিডমটা থাকবে নাকি সোশ্যাল স্ট্রাকচারটা তো বেশি ডিস্ট্রয় হওয়ার দিকে চলে যাবে না?
আচ্ছা, যখন
এখানে ম্যাডাম যেটা মিন করতে চেয়েছেন হয়তো রিটেন কনস্টিটিউশন না থাকলেও চলবে, এটা হয়তো মিন করতে।
হ্যাঁ, রিটেন কনস্টিটিউশন না থাকলেও চলবে, কিন্তু কনস্টিটিউশন তো এসেছে, আমরা পেয়েছি তো 1950 সালে। তার আগে কি আমাদের কোনো রাইট ছিল না? তখনও তো ছিল, তখনও তো ফ্রি অ্যান্ড ফেয়ার একটা ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট, যদি আমরা ডিপেন্ডেন্ট না থাকতাম আমরা ফ্রি অ্যান্ড ফেয়ার থাকতে পারতাম, আমরা যে কনস্টিটিউশনাল ভ্যালুজ সেগুলো ফলো করতে পারতাম, তখনও আমাদের ফ্রি স্পিচ থাকতো। তো আমরা যদি কনস্টিটিউশন শুধু রেকগনাইজ করেছে সেটা যেটা অলরেডি ছিল, কনস্টিটিউশন আলাদা করে আমাদের কিছু রাইটস কিন্তু দেয়নি, কনস্টিটিউশন শুধু রেকগনাইজ করেছে সেই রাইটস গুলো যেগুলো আগে থেকেই আমাদের ছিল।
না, তবে একটা জিনিস আতিকুর বলছে লিখিত না হলে সমস্যাটা আরো বেশি।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, লিখিত কনস্টিটিউশন অনেক দেশেই নেই, কিন্তু সেখানে তো কনস্টিটিউশনালিজম আছে।
হ্যাঁ, সেখানে আপনার কনভেনশন গুলো ফলো করা হয়, অনেক কিছু বিষয় আছে আর কি
সেখানে কনভেনশন মানে প্রিন্সিপাল গুলো ফলো করা হয়। আমাদের বাড়িতে আমরা নিজের ফ্যামিলিতে কিভাবে, হ্যাঁ আমি একটা কথা বলিনি, আমরা নিজের ফ্যামিলিতে কিভাবে অ্যাক্ট করব, কিভাবে বিহেভ করব, সেটা কিন্তু কোথাও লেখা নেই। তাও আমরা ঠিকভাবেই কিন্তু আমাদের ফ্যামিলির মধ্যে বিহেভ করি। কেন? কারণ ওগুলো বেসিক হিউম্যান মরালস থেকে আসে। সেরকমই একটা দেশে রিটেন কনস্টিটিউশন না থাকলেও তার প্রিন্সিপালস গুলো থাকতেই পারে, সেটাই হচ্ছে কনস্টিটিউশনালিজম।
আচ্ছা, তাহলে আমরা আবার আমাদের আলোচনা শেষ করব। এমনিতে এই জায়গাটা আমাদের সবসময় আলোচনায় আমরা থাকতে পারি না, যেহেতু আমাদের রিসোর্স পাই না। এক বছর আমরা অবশ্য শরীরদাকে